everybody. Hello, hello. Good morning. Let me hear you. Good morning. There we go. We are so excited to be here. I knew I had a better good morning waiting. Let's see, is everybody coming in? We are going to get started. It is really great to be here. Welcome to the 2023 Math Summit. It is very, very exciting for me personally to be here today. I'm Paola Stein. I am the Dean of the College of Education here at NC State, and it is really an honor to welcome you to our Math Summit. You know, we never counted the Math Summit, so today we were trying to think which Math Summit is this, and we're going to have to do a little bit of historical research. But the Math Summit has been going on for about 15 years, we were thinking this morning, and maybe 6 or 7 of those have been here at NC State. So it's really, really special to be here. So on behalf of our College of Education, I want to welcome you to our campus. This is a special week. There are no students on campus this week. This is the one week where NC State has no classes in between, you know, the spring semester and the fall semester. So that's how we managed to accommodate additional events like this one. And this year we are really excited because we are piloting a hybrid format. So we have some colleagues who are fully online, and we'll have a set of presentations, virtual presentations, that go in parallel with today. And then we have colleagues here at NC State, and we all share, I believe, this opening presentation. So thank you all for being here. For those of you who are with us virtually, thank you so much. It's great to have you as well. So I'm finishing my first year as Dean of the College, but I am a math educator. So I don't get to say this in many events about how much this means to me. When we had the opportunity to bring the Math Summit from SAS here to NC State, I was asked if we wanted to do that, as I said, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and the answer was an immediate yes. And since then, we've been working with our wonderful partners. So this summit is really a partnership more than anything. This is the culmination of a year of work, because we spend a year meeting monthly to talk about math education, and for districts to share with each other, what are you doing, what are the issues, how are you addressing this or that. So this is really a partnership between the Triangle Math Alliance, our College of Education, with support still from the Goodnight Educational Foundation. And I want to mention some of the partners that I would like to thank them for their work. So from the Triangle Math Alliance, we meet with Chapel Hill, Carrboro City Schools, and you can see some of the administrators that work with us. Durham Public Schools, Johnston County Schools, Orange County Schools, Wake County Public School System, and then NC State, some of our faculty, and some of our amazing, amazing students. So a few groups to thank. I want to start by thanking our guests. So we have a couple of guests with us. We have Dr. Drew Cook, Assistant Superintendent for Academics at Wake County. Thank you for being here, Drew. And I believe Dr. Rodney Trice, if he's not here, will be joining us. He's Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning Equity and Engagement at Chapel Hill, Carrboro City Schools. So a couple of special thank yous. First, our presenters. You know, we are nothing without you. This is really an event from teachers to teachers. You know, most of the presenters are in the classroom, and they have had great ideas, great experiences that they want to share. So a lot of presenters are classroom teachers. We have math coaches presenting with us, some principals, district staff. We have some of our university colleagues from NC State and other universities as well here with us today. DPI folks coming in to also share some of what they are doing. This NC CAT, and C2ML. So a lot of groups join us in being a presenter for this event. So to all of you, thank you. My slides are not matching my talk, so I'm improvising here because what I'm seeing there doesn't match what I have here, but all is good. So I also want to thank you, each one of you, for being here today. You know, this is the summer. Most of you are here on your own time because, like us, you know that professional development is important. You know, in so many other professions, professional development is part of the day-to-day work. It's embedded in the profession. And sometimes in teaching, you are taking your own time to be here to do what we know is best for our children and for all learners across the state. So thank you all. This is very special. As a former teacher and the wife of a high school teacher, I know how much summer is important. I know how hard last year was. I know everybody was exhausted in May, but I'm hoping each one of us has found a way to rekindle our passion for education, to find again the time and space to think about our students. And so I'm excited you're here. I would say every May I hear from my husband, this might be the last one. And then about July, he started, who are my students? I should look at the roster. I want to know who's in my classroom. And, you know, and so I'm hoping you have found the time to find that energy again because all learners need us. And the state needs every single teacher we can get. And because you're here, I know you are already the best. So thank you so much for that. Last year, I spent a lot of time as my first year as dean trying to listen to what people needed, what teachers needed. So I just want to say that our College of Education is here for you, and we want to create resources that support the work teachers do in general. So we, last year, did two things. We created a packet of print-on-demand resources that you can access on our website that has ideas for classrooms, lots of things for teachers. And then we also created a semi-annual newsletter specifically for K-12 educators in North Carolina. It includes tips, resources, professional development opportunities from our faculty, and lots of ideas. So this QR code, resourcesforeducators.com, can take you to some of these resources here in our College of Education. And, you know, if you see me, or if my name is unique, so you can find me, please let me know, you know, what is it that teachers need? NC State, our College of Education, wants to continue to provide resources to teachers. Many of our faculty are prior teachers, so we are really interested in continue to work with you. All right, so in terms of listening to you, we continue to ask you every year, how is it going, you know, what was useful, and we use that to plan what we do next year. So your feedback on the evaluation is really important. Please, throughout the day, give us feedback. But here are some of our numbers. You know, most of you said the sessions the information was relevant, that you were going to use it in the classroom. That's part of what we really want to make sure we are giving you practical tools, things you can implement immediately. And many of you were returners. You know, it was not the first time. So some people say, oh, people are returning. Where are the new people? But I'm thinking, this is so good. People are coming back every year. So I'm excited about the returners. And of course, we want to continue to grow and bring more people. But I think we already have this Math Summit community, and for that, I'm very thankful. So you received your schedule in SCAD. I'm not going to go, you know, here say go over schedule. But I don't think I need to go over schedule. I think you can see we are having our speaker. We have 2 sessions. Then we are going to have lunch and continue the conversation over lunch. And then 2 more sessions in the afternoon. So please check SCAD. Each one of you registered for the sessions you want to attend. You have to register, please do. And then it gives you your own schedule, where the meetings are, etc., so you can follow the instructions. In terms of logistics, lunch will be here on the 3rd floor, right here where we are. This is the 3rd floor, so lunch will be out there when time comes. There'll be 2 lines for lunch, and it's the same boxed lunch option, so either line, please join a line. We want to try and move you to get your food quickly so you can sit down, enjoy lunch, and continue talking to your colleagues. This is just an example of your personal schedule. If you, in SCAD, what it would look like. It's going to tell you where to go, and it tells you the rooms. And then we have all these wonderful, wonderful students and colleagues with red shirts saying Math Summit. So if you need help, any of them can really be your support. So I would be amiss if I didn't really say a big thank you to the graduate students who helped organize this event. So Anna Howard, Danielle Maloney, Jan Smith-Thomas, and Brianna Traeger. If you are here, thank you. We could not have done this event without them. They run this like a, well-oiled machine, and really allow all of us to focus on the math and on the discussions and all the logistics for this event, all those emails, all the schedule, all the parking, everything else that needs to happen, the food, the technology. There's so much else that needs to happen, and that's all because of our graduate students. So thank you so much. So if you have a question, ask our volunteers. Please provide your feedback. As I said, we read very carefully. When we meet again in September, first thing we are going to do is go over evaluation, read everything. What do we need next year? And we start, again in September. So any questions, ask our students. And now, before we introduce the speaker, I actually have the pleasure of introducing a wonderful, wonderful colleague who is also part of, who keeps us going every year with her energy. And she's going to introduce the speaker. So it's my honor, really honor, to introduce Sonia Dupree. Sonia is the Senior Administrator for High School Mathematics for Wake County Public School System. She was a classroom teacher for 14 years in North Carolina and has served as District High School Math Curriculum and Instruction Specialist in the Academics Department for 15 years. I've been in North Carolina 13 years, and I met Sonia just about when I got here, and her energy, has continued. She's like the Energizer Bunny, She keeps going and going and going and pushing all of us to do our best and to spend our time investing in math education in our state. Sonia is one of the original collaborators that helped establish the NC2ML and is a leader in the Triangle Math Alliance and the Large District Math Collaborative. So please join me in welcoming Sonia to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. So excited to have you here. One thing that Paula didn't mention is that I am a 2-time graduate of NC State University, very proud Wolfpack alumni. Got both my bachelor's and master's degrees here some time ago. We won't say how long. So very excited to be here today. And it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Francisco Villegas is a national mathematics education leader, an inspirational speaker, an educational systems advisor, and a mathematics education leader mentor. He's been an educator for 25 years. Formerly, he served as a high school mathematics teacher for 12 years, an instructional coach, and a mathematics director. He currently serves as Senior Vice President of School Transformation and Systems Advisor at the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. In his current role, Francisco leads a team of 17 instructional coaches, coordinators, and directors who lead the partnership's school transformation work and systems advising work. During his time as a classroom teacher, Mr. Villegas' students achieved unmatched outcomes for Black and Latino students experiencing poverty. 100% pass rate, most of them fives, on the AP Calculus AB and BC exams, while at the same time quadrupling enrollment. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker.
Thank you. Good morning. I don't know if the mic is on. Try now. All right. There we go. Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here this morning. It almost didn't happen. I was in Miami last night till about midnight. But I'm so happy to be here today. The title of the keynote today is important. I'm going to be talking about gatekeeping and opening gateways. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. A great Chinese philosopher says one of my favorite quotes: watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. So thoughts become destiny. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things today. Some of them are going to be subtle, and some of them are going to be very blunt. But what I want to start with is saying that mathematics has opened up so many doors for me. Mathematics has historically done that for a lot of people. It's been a gateway to opportunity. But we all know that it's also a gatekeeper to opportunity for so many students. We hear this over and over again. Kids get to college and they can't get past the math courses. They drop out in their first year. This happens in a lot of colleges across the nation. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can change this narrative. But to do so, we have to be very intentional. Very intentional. And again, thoughts are very powerful because thoughts shape what we believe. So it's really, really important that we're in control of our thoughts at all times. You see a winding road. I want you to wonder what's around the turn. If we were driving down this road, our brains would be working very quickly. It'd be doing things that we're not even aware of, right? Mostly that turn over there is what makes me wonder, what's around that turn? We don't really know. We can't see. The best we can do is anticipate, predict, prepare, act, succeed, fail, learn from those actions, right? That's all we can do. We don't really know. We could probably slow down. That'd be a good idea. If the road was wet or there was some ice on the road, that'd be really important. But on the road and in life, we can't always predict everything. But we can anticipate a lot of things. Currently, advancements in technology are exciting and scary at the same time, because some of these emerging technologies in the wrong hands or used for the wrong reasons is frightening to think about. The way that society thinks about technology is different. People use technology in different ways. As math teachers, you probably aren't worried as much about it, this thing called ChatGPT, as your English teaching colleagues, right? But these emerging technologies are coming. They're not going anywhere. The advancements are coming. Question is, how are we preparing students for that future? That future that is not so clear to us. Right now we know what we know. We know what we've experienced, but we don't know what the road ahead looks like. But it's really important that we're not just teaching our students mathematics, because mathematics is very, very powerful. And power can be used in good ways and in bad ways. When we think about injustices and inequities around the world, they are beginning to threaten our democracies around the world. That's also important for us to think about. When we think about the environment and environmental changes, we begin to think about how scary the future can be for our children and grandchildren if we don't get a hold of this, right? So there's a lot to be thinking about. And we also have to prepare our students for these future skills. When I look at this list up here, I can't think of a single thing up there that isn't appropriate for the mathematics classroom. Not a single thing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be talking to you about my classroom today. And when I look at this list, and it's a short list, there are others, these are all things that I was intentionally teaching when I was a teacher. That word intentional is very important. Now, this is just one source, a book. But if you start searching the internet, this is from McKinsey & Company, you'll begin to find these skills of the future all over the place. People, organizations are simply organizing them and categorizing them in different ways. But it's very important for us to be thinking about not just how we learn math and the content that we teach and how important it is. It is. It's extremely important. We want our students to be well prepared. I almost dropped out of college in my first year. And I graduated second in my high school class. It took a counselor to keep me in college. The handsome guy on the left is me. The guy with the green shirt is my brother Jonathan. We have the same biological parents. We lived in the same household. We attended just about all of the same schools in the same districts. But we had very, very different opportunities in school. I'll tell you more about why later. And because of that, we've had very different outcomes in life. I'll come back to this. I want you to now imagine what's possible for that child if this child went to school in your district, K-12. Now think about your school in particular. What would you say to this child's mother if she came to your school and asked, what can I expect my child to experience at this school? I want you to think about that. We should be able to say that, right? Like that's who we serve. We serve families, children, communities. So we should be able to share with families what they should expect their child to experience at our school. I have a second question for you. What would you say is possible for this child? How do you know? But I want you to keep this image in mind. I'm going to come back to it later. What about these guys? Those are all pictures of me. But I wanted to start with, what about these guys? Because I want to keep your brain going and thinking about how we make decisions about what people are capable of. So, if you look at the pictures, they look different. And I ask people all the time, especially when I have interactive sessions, to tell me what they can see from these pictures. They're snapshots. They're school pictures. They're portraits. What can we tell from looking at these pictures? And there's a lot of things you can tell. Some people say, like, you like blue. Right? Things like that. But what you can't tell is what's going on in this child's mind. What you don't know is what's going on in this child's life. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. They lived in generational poverty in Mexico. So they came here with nothing other than hopes and dreams. And when they got here, they had to live with family members. We moved around a lot because even some of our family members were unstable financially. We were homeless at times, living out of a station wagon and then a van. Living in a van is cool nowadays. It wasn't for me, though, as a child, because I had to go to school. And sometimes my clothes didn't get washed. And sometimes I didn't take a shower. And sometimes I couldn't do my homework. So those were the experiences that I was having as a child. My parents were immigrants that lived in generational poverty. We experienced food insecurity. We experienced homelessness. Then I'll tell you a little bit about my father. He was struggling, but he was, how I like to say, he was grinding. He was working really, really hard. He was trying to make ends meet. He was trying to provide for his family. He was struggling. And then the late 80s, early 90s came around, and in Los Angeles, lowriders were in. And my dad was an auto body mechanic. So he went from not doing so great to doing extremely well for doing a lot of custom work. So my life had shifted from struggling all the time to now. My dad's doing well. We have our own place. He's saving money up to buy a house. Not too long after that, a car fell on him at work. Severely injured his back. He couldn't walk for a long time. This was really hard for my father. It was hard for our family. I had to start working, and legally I couldn't work yet. So I started doing construction work while also going to school. My dad not being able to provide for his family was depressing. He began to turn to alcohol, then pain medicine. And then when the doctor cut him off the pain medicine, he went to go find the drugs on the street to try to heal the pain or deal with the pain. And then our entire life came crumbling down again. It was like these peaks and valleys. When you grow up really poor and you're going through all of these different traumatic experiences as a child, you begin to lose hope. And you definitely don't have confidence. Hope and confidence. Those two things are often absent in many children's lives, in many people's lives. Eventually, my father started using drugs and he became violent. First, verbally abusive, then physically abusive. And I had to, when I worked up the courage, I had to get in the middle of him beating my mother. I was going to school during this time. These are the things that I was experiencing at home. We started to move around a lot again because we didn't have stability. I want to come back to this. I want to go here. So I told you about a few of the struggles. That's my wife and I on the far left. We met in middle school. I became a father at the age of 15. Then I became a father at the age of 17 again. Those are my two children. It's my daughter in high school. They're both grown up now, in college, math majors. My wife and I are experiencing an empty nest right now. So I have Bear, who's my new baby. And I don't know what you know about American Akitas, but they are one of the most stubborn dogs. But I treat Bear the way I treated my students, with love and compassion. And even the most stubborn dog in the world listens and does what he needs to do, and he's loyal. I don't have to yell at him. I don't have to put him in timeout. I don't have to do any of those things. When he does something wrong, I simply stare at him in the eyes and I say, "You know you're not supposed to do that, right?" The point here is that love goes a long way. I'm on the far left. These are pictures of my siblings. All four of them. They were also struggling at home, and we haven't had the same outcomes. And the reason for that, at least what I can pin it back to, was something happened for me in second grade. I was tested for gifted and talented education. And what that meant was that now I had a label. I had a label on me. I'm gifted. I have potential. People took care of me. People made sure I didn't fail. No matter what I did, no matter what was happening, people took care of me. Why? Because of a label. They didn't take care of my brothers Jonathan and Joshua the same way, because the two of them never got tested for gifted and talented education. You see, in order to get tested, you have to have a teacher recommendation. So your teacher has to see potential in you, otherwise you're never tested. My brother Jonathan is extremely intelligent. Probably more intelligent than I am. But he's a big kid, a really big kid. I was very compliant and nice, quiet. Jonathan was louder, and he was bigger, sometimes intimidating because of how big he was. So he never got the chance to take that test. My brother Joshua, he also wasn't tested. My sister Patty was. She owns her own business, lives a great life. Why is it that we need tests and labels to determine who gets a great education? Why? back to this picture. You could probably see, if you look closely enough on the door in the back there, the lead paint chipping off. But I'm on the left there. I'm your keynote speaker today. I'm an accomplished educator, an accomplished leader, and now I mentor leaders. I mentor leaders because when I was coming up as a mathematics education leader, I didn't have very many mentors. As a matter of fact, I didn't have very many mentors when I was a classroom teacher. Sometimes teaching and education can be a very lonely profession, even though we're surrounded by so many other people that are trying to solve the same problems or address the same issues. Same parents. We lived in the same household, but we were given different opportunities in school, and we've had very different outcomes in life. For me, education was a gateway that was wide open to so many opportunities. For my brother Jonathan, education was a gatekeeper to opportunity. My brother Jonathan is incarcerated. He has been in and out of jail, struggling with addiction since he was 14 years old. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not blaming education on for what happened to Jonathan. But I am saying that education did something really special for me. It saved me. These are pictures of my classroom. Back 2009. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Now, you know that when you release students in your classroom, you better have some routines for bringing them back. So, I have a mic, which is really helpful today. But I'm also going to use this symbol, which many of you know. It doesn't mean stop talking. It simply means we're coming back together, wrap up your last thought. Okay? If you see me put my hand up like this, I would invite you to join me and do the same so that others around you know that we're coming back together soon. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Talk to someone next to you. Oh, wow, you all wrap up your last thoughts very quickly. I didn't expect you all to do that, but thank you. I hope you were done with your last thoughts. Now, just use your teacher voice and tell us, what do you notice? Happy, smiles. Engaged? Discourse. Okay. I always wore a suit, yes. Movement. I'm circulating. All right. Visitors. Yes, my classroom was a lab. Decorations, yes. Absolutely. Those decorations were important. In case you're wondering, all those stars you see, they have students' names on them. Those were every single one of my AP Calculus students. I think I missed something over here. Yes, very different hair. In California, we stayed at home for like 18 months. And so you probably noticed in the pictures when I was younger, I always had hair. But part of growing up poor and moving around and not having great hygiene means you also get lice. That's why I lost all the hair. My mom was like, yeah, we're not doing this. Shave it all off. And then the pandemic came and I was like, oh, great opportunity to regrow it. Zoom hides everything when it's growing out all funky. But you notice some of the most important things to me. First and foremost, smiles. I can guess and probably bet that the people in this space love and enjoy mathematics. But I hope that you love and enjoy working with children a lot more than mathematics. Because some of that gets lost as we grow up in the grade levels. We forget about the whole child, and we start really thinking about just our content. And the content's important, don't get me wrong. You gotta know your math. But people are what's really important. So, in my classroom, I wanted my kids to love math. It wasn't always like this. I noticed that it didn't take some national movement to get me to start teaching this way. The reason that I went into education was because of what was happening in my family and what I was observing happening with my siblings at school. But I'll tell you the truth. When I was a kid, I had two dreams. I want to be a CIA agent, or I want to be a marine biologist. The CIA agent thing went out the window very quickly when I was in San Diego ready to swear into the Marine Corps, had gotten a 98 on my ASVAB, and they told me you can have any job you want. I always get one of those. But then, when I told them, great, I have the scores, ready to go, military intelligence, that's what I want to do. Recruiter goes, comes back a few minutes later, he says, got to pick another job. I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't score high enough? Like, oh no, you scored plenty high. You just can't join military intelligence because your parents were not born in this country. I was like, all right, take me home. I'm like, what are you going to do? You've been planning this whole time? Well, I'm just going to go to college. I'm pretty smart. I could do that too. He was upset. But he took me home, and there went that. The marine biology thing didn't happen because I've been living in poverty my entire life. And then I did some research, and you have to have a PhD. And at the time, the average salary for a marine biologist with a PhD was like $68,000 a year. I'm like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life paying back these loans. And so I went into teaching. But you see, if I'm not going to make if I can't go to the CIA and I'm not going to make a lot of money doing marine biology, I might as well do something that's meaningful to me. And what I wanted to do was, I wanted to prove that it's actually possible to reach every child. At the time, a lot of people were looking at me like I was really naive and I didn't know what I was talking about, but I remember saying, like, I'm going into teaching with a purpose. My purpose is to prove that every child can be reached and that every child can be successful. Now, my first 2 years of teaching were awful. I was 21 when I started teaching. I really struggled with presence. I really struggled with classroom management. Who cares that I was brilliant at math? I couldn't manage the class, right? So they weren't learning. So I had to get that straight. You know, my administrators would come in, and they put me on an assistance plan, and they told me, you got to do this. And then later I learned, I'm never doing that again. I did it, and it worked for me at the time, but it was so controlling. It was so controlling. And the kids were sitting there quietly, but it didn't feel like they were learning. Have you ever felt like I'm working harder than they are? Have you ever felt like I want it more than they do? I want them to learn more than they do? Yeah, we all have, I'm sure. So I struggled for a couple of years. And then I got the presence thing down because I was taught rules and authority and all of that. So I got that down. Once you got that down, I was like, I think I can play around with this and get creative now. So the new 2 rules in my classroom were, we're going to work hard and we're going to laugh hard. Those were the 2 rules. That's all I needed. You're going to work hard in this classroom. That's an expectation. But we're also going to have fun doing it because I want you to love learning and I want you to love math. My students, the majority of them, were also experiencing poverty. These pictures show you images of students in an algebra class, in a geometry class, in an AP Calculus AB class, and an AP Calculus BC class. It's mixed. I really struggled doing this in my Algebra 1 class and my geometry class at the beginning. It was easier to do it with my AP Calculus students, and I don't mean in the classroom, I mean in terms of outcomes. When the state results came in at the end of the year, it was working for my AP Calc students, but it wasn't necessarily leading to what I was wanting. What I was wanting is every single child must be at the very least proficient in grade level work. That was my expectation. I didn't care where they came in. I didn't care what level they came in. By the time they leave my classroom, they need to be at least proficient. That was my goal. It took me a few years to figure out how to do that, but eventually I did. Now, I also want to tell you about how I became an AP Calculus teacher, because that was a journey. One day I was walking by the teacher's lounge, and I heard some of my colleagues saying things like this. These kids aren't motivated. These kids don't do homework. These kids are not well prepared. These kids have so many gaps in their learning. And I was walking by, and I heard that, and I thought to myself, wow, these people are really jaded. How can they help the children in their classrooms if they don't even believe in them? But what I was hearing more is I don't know how. We as adults put up a lot of walls, and we don't say the truth anymore. But the truth, what I was hearing was, I don't know how to reach them. And so I asked them a question about what they were saying, and they laughed at me, and they said, oh, you're still wet behind the ears. You'll get it eventually. And I knew myself, so I walked away from that. And I went home, took some deep breaths, reflected, probably didn't sleep at all that night. But in the morning, I got dressed, went to work, and went right into the principal's office. And what I said to him was, I want to teach calculus next year. First he laughed, and then he asked why. He laughed because of how I came into his office. I would come in like that all the time when I was upset. And he said, why? I said, because I want to prove what's possible. Now I had his attention. He said, oh, tell me more. And so I told him what I had heard. And he said, oh, Francisco, Do you know what you're going to get me into? You see, the current AP Calculus teacher was also a big union leader in the district. There was no way the principal was going to take AP Calculus from him. He felt entitled to that. I've been doing this for decades. But my principal was smart. What he did instead was he gave us each a section of AP Calculus the next year. That's it. Simple. We each started with 20 students in our classroom. He divvied them up equally. By the end of the year, he had 3 students left in his class. Kids are smart. Kids know. Kids want to learn. They might tell you they don't, but they do. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. Did I end up with more than 20 students in my class? Yes, I did. But I also lost 4. And for me, that was a failure. Those 4 kids started in my class, but they did not end the year in my class. And they didn't take the AP Calculus exam. So in my book, that was a failure on my part. I failed to reach those kids. What happened was, those kids were so used to getting A's in all their classes, and then they got to my class and the rigor level was here, and they experienced their first C or D or F on their first exam, and they were like, I'm out of here. I'm done. And it was so easy to get out of my class. All you had to do is go to the counselor and say, I don't want to be in this class anymore, and then they got switched out. Or have their parents call the counselors and say, I want my child out of this class, and they were out. So at the end of my first year, I had more passing scores on the AP Calculus exam than in the history of the school combined. In my first year. But 2 of my kids didn't pass the test. I remember, I went into education with the purpose. All means all. Those 2 kids didn't pass the test, and the other 4 dropped the class. Did I accomplish something that I wanted to accomplish that year? Absolutely. I had proven what is possible with these children. The next year I was determined. No one's dropping my class. Everyone's passing the exam. And I only want 5s. Because all it takes to get a 5 on the AP Calculus AB or BC exam is a 70% correct. It's pretty easy. Do that in my sleep. %, right? For salutatorian, that's pretty easy. I can do that. But I also went to my principal at the end of the year again. Every time he saw me coming in the morning, because I was one of those first teachers there, and I was waiting for him in front of his door, he was like, oh, all right. Welcome, Francisco. What do you want today? I said, I have a favor to ask of you. He said, what do you want? I said, I want you to tell the counselors that they're not allowed to take kids out of my class anymore. I wasn't making a lot of friends. But results are powerful. And they went from not liking me for a couple of years to being my biggest fans a few years later. You see, because now kids were getting into Pepperdine, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Princeton. That hadn't happened before at our school. I know here in the Research Triangle that probably happens a lot, but at my school, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. But all of a sudden, you see, we started with an AP Calculus AB program, and then I added BC, and then I talked to my colleague, and we added AP Stats, and we had sophomores taking AB, juniors taking BC, seniors taking Stats, most of them getting 5s. You can't ignore that anymore, right? These STEM universities were looking at them like 3 AP exams, all 5s, physics 5s. Some of these kids started learning our methods, and they went and studied for exams on their own, even when school didn't offer those courses. So my next goal was, I want more kids. I want more kids taking calculus. So I worked really hard, but I realized something, and this is an important point. I didn't do this myself. We did this together at my school. My colleagues and I in the math department, we started having conversations because I realized, I noticed some patterns here. The students coming from teacher A versus teacher B versus teacher C are prepared in different ways. So I went to the teachers that were teaching Algebra 2 and pre-calculus, and I asked them, how are you teaching these topics? And they started laying them out. And I was a truth teller. I'm a lot more diplomatic today than I was then. But I said, well, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working because your students don't know those things when they get to my class. However, that's working, and that's working because they know those things when they get to calculus. Those were courageous conversations that needed to be had. Did it feel good at first? No. But guess what happened? We got aligned. We started collaborating. We started getting crystal clear about what kids needed to learn and what skills and concepts were really important for them to master. And then together, as a math department, we were able to add BC, add AP Stats, quadruple enrollment in AB. We were on a roll. And it was so exciting to be a part of this. Not just for me, but for all of my colleagues. So that collaboration, building that collective efficacy as teachers, that's one of the most powerful things we do. Because if we're in our classrooms by ourselves, each trying to help a different group of students that comes into our classrooms, we're missing a great opportunity. The way that we should be thinking about children that come to our school is they are all our students. All of them. We are all responsible for them. And when we start thinking that way, great magic begins to happen. Powerful things begin to happen. Here's another image. You still see a lot of smiles. One of the things that I wonder about, though, is I wonder if you're thinking or wondering, all right, that looks great, but what are they working on? You see, I can walk into a classroom and see this and think, oh, wow, this is great. But what if the content, the tasks that they're working on is all below grade level work? You know that's what actually happens in this country for most Black and Latino students experiencing poverty, is they hardly ever get access to grade level work. Oh, well, because they have gaps in their learning, we need to remediate. Then when are they ever going to learn grade level work if that's all we do? It's a snowball effect, right? So in my class, what I did was I only put grade level work in front of my students. In my AP Calculus class, it meant everything was aligned to the rigor levels of the AP exam. Everything. Nothing less. And because the AP Calculus exam was timed, every one of my exams was timed. Right? Because kids needed to learn those things. So they were prepared in the ways that they had to perform. So, yeah, they're happy, and yeah, they're doing exciting things, but they're also being very successful because the content that's in front of them is grade level work, because it's rigorous, because the expectations are high. Now, it's real easy to raise levels of expectation, and then oftentimes when that happens, we begin to see more failure. Why? You can't just raise the bar. You also have to raise the support systems, right? You have to set the bar high, and then you have to think, what is it going to take to help every single one of these children reach those expectations? And those needs They might be different. That is what my teachers understood about me. That is why I am here today as your keynote speaker, because teachers believed in me. But not only did they believe in me, they took care of me. School was my safe place. Life at home was challenging, but at school it was safe. It was safe because people cared about me. It was safe because they took care of me. But that didn't happen for my two youngest brothers. No one took care of them. No one looked out for them. You see, this is why I think I'm here today. Because teachers believed in me and they figured it out, right? When you believe, when your why is powerful and strong, you figure it out. I'm sure every one of you who has taught for a few years has had a child in your classroom who you weren't sure how you were going to help them, but you weren't going to stop trying. How might we do that for all children? Because they all need us. Now, sometimes some of the work that I did with my students was on a one-on-one basis. You see, I want to be clear about something. This wasn't just me standing in front of the classroom and being great at pedagogy and great at content knowledge. Those things were in place. As you could see, I was experimenting with problem-based learning in my classroom over 10 years ago, not because some new standards came out, but because I was trying to figure out a way to get some excitement in my classroom, and I was trying to find a way to get them to think, them to problem solve. I already know how. How do I get them to do it? And the way that I found out about problem-based learning, it wasn't through some professional learning that my district was doing or some event that I went to. It was because one of my colleagues who had been in the military and he had retired at 40 and then moved to California so he could earn a second salary on top of his retirement. At that time I was thinking, man, maybe I should have gone in the military. Retire at 40. But he said this to me. He said, hey, you know, Francisco, there's this academy. It's called Exeter Academy. And every child that goes to this school gets into elite STEM universities. And I said, oh, yeah? What do they do? He says, oh, they don't use textbooks. They've written their entire curriculum based as a set of problems that students grapple with, and over time they learn math concepts and skills. I said, oh. I went to my principal, hey, I want to visit Exeter Academy. He's like, you're crazy. He's like, you can't get everything you want. So I went back to the teacher and I said, I can't go to Exeter Academy, so any other ideas? He's like, oh yeah, look at their website. They put everything on their website. So I started downloading the problems, and I started getting curious and emailing people like, what do you all do? How do you engage students? And what I learned was that they use this method called you, y'all, we. You put a task, a rich task in front of kids, and you say, you grapple with the task first. Then you all, in pairs or groups, continue to grapple with the task and share your thinking. And then we, as a classroom, come together to talk about that learning and solidify the learning. I was like, what a concept. So I started trying, and it was really hard. Really hard. I really struggled with it at first. I want to make that clear in case any of you are trying it out. It's hard. But then eventually you begin to see how powerful it really is, because it's really hard, even when things are interesting, to listen for an extended period of time. It's to someone talking at you about something that you may not even be that interested in. Right? I'm talking at you right now, but I'm telling you stories to try to captivate the audience, right? But if I keep talking for another 2 hours, some of you are going to start walking out. And some of you are going to start putting your heads down and doing other things. Kids don't have that choice. They get in trouble when they do that. Right? But they have to sometimes put up with this 5 or 6 hours a day. Just listen to someone talk at them and pour knowledge, supposedly, information towards them. Right? I did that for my first couple of years as a teacher, and then I was ready to quit because the administrators were telling me that I was struggling. Everything that I was getting was advice and directives, do this, do that. I was like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this dream of proving what's possible was just a dream. But I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I stuck with it because I was like, you're not going to give up after 2 years. So I stuck with it, and I kept working on it, and it got better over time. So if we want to think about and talk about what's really important, this is what's really important. What do we teach students, and how do we engage them in learning? That's what my classroom used to look like. It really did. Because that's what I learned. Like, when I was in school, I always sat at the front. We always sat in rows. Teacher passed out worksheets. I finished them in 1 minute and put my head down the rest of the period. I wasn't really challenged in school. But I was really smart, and I was allowed to not work and think most of the time. Because what they gave me was really easy, and I just did it, and I was done. So my learning finished very quickly every day. I wasn't challenged. But in my classroom, I wanted to make sure that my students were challenged. And so they engaged in different ways. As you could see there, there are adults, there's videographers in there. They did documentary. They brought people in to observe my classroom. New teachers would always come to my classroom to visit, to see what was possible. That was what I wanted to do, prove what was possible. So I want to make a connector here. If you haven't read The Opportunity Myth, it's a must-read for all educators. When I read The Opportunity Myth, I thought, holy cow, this is what I've been wanting to say for a long time, but it's been very difficult to articulate exactly what has led to my success. Now, in The Opportunity Myth, they point out these 4 key resources, and those are not the 4 key resources word for word from The Opportunity Myth. These are the 4 things that I remember doing in my classroom a lot. Now, the 2 things in the middle, we should always be working on those. We should always be working on our craft, right? We're not born great teachers, and just because you went through some credentialing program doesn't mean you're an amazing teacher already. You have to continuously work on your craft, right? You've got to work on your instruction, and you have to make sure the curriculum is rigorous. No more below grade level work for black and brown kids living in poverty. Give them grade level work. They can do it. They just need the opportunity. That's what this study is about, the opportunity myth. This myth that we're giving kids opportunities and access, and if you just come and be compliant at our school, you will be prepared for the future. That's not true. It's not. I was very compliant. And like I said, I almost dropped out of college many times my first year in college. A counselor saved me. A counselor kept me there and said, you will not. But, you see, effective instruction and rigorous high-quality curriculum, those 2 things alone are going to be really powerful in a classroom. But they won't necessarily lead to 100%. It will not lead to all students, because that alone is not motivation enough for all kids. Kids are not supposed to come to us motivated. Many adults talk about math as something that they don't do, as something that, it's okay not to be good at. Right? We don't talk about reading that way, but we talk about math that way quite a bit in our society. We all know that. So, in this study, they talk about high expectations. But I went a little bit further, because high expectations also have to be rooted in positive beliefs of the students that are in front of us. We can't just say we have high expectations. Do you believe it? Do you believe that the child sitting in front of you is capable of doing it? That's important. We can't just say, oh, well, I'm teaching high-level standards and rigorous work. I have to believe that they can do it. If I don't believe that they can do it, they probably won't in my classroom. You see, I speak to leaders a lot as well. And what I say to leaders is, we have to believe in our teachers the way we expect them to believe in our students. It's at every layer. It's like peeling an onion. We have to believe in people. When we believe in people, we can help them. When we don't believe in people, we cannot help them. It's best to get out the way, right? When we don't believe in them. But then this other piece over here is extremely important as well, because there might be children in your classrooms that are experiencing some of the things that I experienced as a child. Some of you may have experienced some of those things as well, and you know how traumatic it is. So for me, that last one is extremely important. Relevance is important. It motivates. But identity cultivation, intentional, positive mathematics identity cultivation is a must. It's a must. We cannot keep talking about the two things in the middle and not talk about that. I was so excited to see the resource that was put up this morning, because the very first chapter that was on there was connected to that. I thought, oh, I'm going to read that, because I saw that. And I recommend you all read it as well, because that is that important. That is how I was able to get all of my kids to be successful. These were the academic messages I delivered to my students on a daily basis. This is important. You can do this. I won't give up on you. That's it. It's important. You can do this. Go. I'm here. I won't give up on you. That's how I spoke to my students. Why could I speak to them like that? Because I also connected with them, got to learn about them. They knew how much I cared about them. They knew that my heart was there for them. So I could speak to them that way. I could say, this is important. You must do this. I believe you can do it, and I won't give up on you. Now get to work. The personal messages are also important. I believe in you. You must believe in yourself, because you matter and you're worth it. But words are just words, and kids will doubt. So it was also really, really important for me to continuously come back to this and say, when you stop believing in yourself, I'm here as your biggest cheerleader to continue to push you to believe in yourself. I told you that there's two things that are often absent in people's lives when they are experiencing trauma, experiencing poverty: hope and confidence. Adults lose that sometimes as well. or are missing that as well, right? It's not just children. This is people work. This is heart work. Now, how do we get there? I told you. If you try to spend the rest of your career inside your classroom doing your own thing, your impact will be limited to the students that come in that classroom. That's it. But we have a much bigger calling to serve all children. And if you've never heard Rita Pearson, the great Rita Pearson, rest in peace, you must. Watch her TED Talk. She knows what she's talking about. This is my brother Joshua. On August 18th of 2022, less than a year ago, he was violently murdered. Joshua never learned how to read. Joshua left behind 4 children. That could have been me. But it wasn't. Because I had a lot of people cheering for me. I had a lot of people supporting me. I had a lot of people believing in me. And that's why I'm here. Because of my teachers. You have a lot of power. More power than you know. More power to do great, amazing things for people and children, for our country, for this world. Mathematics is powerful. If you look on any list of the top paying jobs, you're going to see 2 things. The medical field and mathematics. Everything with the mathematical foundation. And when you think about the medical field, it also has a mathematical foundation. Math is power. But math also behaves as a gatekeeper for so many kids and so many people. It's time to unlock those gates and make mathematics a gateway to opportunity. We can do that. We can. I've proven that it's possible to do it with every single child that comes to our schools. It is possible. This is data. North Carolina, 4th grade. A lot of data, a lot of things that you can look at. But this, my friends, is what I'm paying attention to right here. In 2022, black students had an average score that was 28 points lower than that for white students. This performance gap has not significantly different from 2000. Kids living in poverty, not significantly different from the year 2000. What progress have we made in the last 23 years? In North Carolina, very little. I know that there are a lot of high-performing school districts in North Carolina. Amazing, amazing results when I look at data. But then when you look closer and you disaggregate the data, 4th grade, there's 8th grade. No different, same thing. What it's saying is that in the last 23 years, the gaps have not decreased. They have not. So, we have some work to do. But you're not alone. These are the trends nationwide. This is not a North Carolina thing. There's some great things happening in North Carolina. But if we want to call ourselves truly great, we can't ignore this. We cannot. He died at a very young age. But guess what? If a child isn't reading in 2nd grade, and he wasn't, he left high school not reading. It was already written on the wall. Children who are not reading by 2nd grade have a very low likelihood of succeeding in life and a very high likelihood of ending up in prison or dead. That's why we cannot ignore the data. These are people's lives we're talking about. We have the power to make people's lives better. But look, I want to be very clear. All we can do as human beings is what we know. We do the best we can. The great Dr. Maya Angelou said it best, right? We do the best we can. And that's all we can do until we know better. If we know better, we have to do better. So I'll leave you with that quote that I started with today. Our thoughts are so powerful. Our thoughts are our destiny. They become our destiny. They're extremely powerful. As you engage in the activities today and the learning sessions, there's some really beautiful ones. I signed up for some. I encourage you to really take hold and immerse yourself in the learning, but don't lose sight of what I'm talking about this morning. The math is important. The pedagogical practice is important. The curriculum is important. But creating a welcoming, inclusive environment for all students is equally important. And that's what I'll leave you with today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inspiring words. At this time, the keynote has concluded, and we will be moving to the first session. Please consult the SCED app and look for the students with the red shirts. They're happy to help if you need any assistance. Thank you.